The army told Eleanor her son died 17 months ago. They sent her condolences. They sent her a folded flag. Last night, he knocked at the door, and she let him in. From Dusk Till Dawn presents The Thing in the Bedroom. Eleanor kept the house exactly as it had been the day he left. The same floral curtains in the kitchen, the same chipped blue plates stacked in the cupboard, the same photograph of Thomas from when he was 18 pinned to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a star. For 2 years she had lived inside that stillness, waiting for the sound of boots on the porch, the creak of the front door, his voice calling ma'am, the way he does when he's trying to sound grown. No one else came back. The letters from the War Department had been brief and final. Entire company lost. No recoverable remains. Deepest condolences. The neighbor stopped asking after the first few months. Eleanor stopped answering the phone. She simply waited. Then on a gray afternoon, when the wind carried the smell of wet leaves and distant rain, the knock came. She opened the door, and there he stood, Thomas, taller than she remembered, shoulders broad under a coat too thin for the season. His face was gaunt, but unmistakably his. The same hazel eyes, the same small scar above the left eyebrow from falling off the garage roof when he was 12. He looked at her without blinking. Thomas? Her voice said, cracked on the name. He nodded once and stepped inside, closed the door behind him with a soft click. No hug, no tears, no explanation of how he survived when no one else had. He simply removed the coat, hung it on the hook by the door as he had never left, and walked past her into the kitchen. Eleanor stood frozen in the hallway, heart hammering so hard she felt it in her teeth. The first night she cooked enough for 6 men. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy thick with butter, beans she had canned herself last summer. Thomas sat at the table and ate, and ate, and ate, and ate. He did not speak. He did not pause between bites. The plate emptied in minutes, and she refilled it without asking. He consumed everything she put before him. 2 whole chickens, most of a loaf of bread, half a pie she intended to save for tomorrow. When the last crumb was gone, he pushed the plate away, stood up, and walked upstairs to his old room without a word. Eleanor stayed in the kitchen long after the dishes were done, listening. At first the house was quiet. Then sometime after midnight the sounds began. Not snoring, not the restlessness shifting of a man troubled by dreams. Low, rhythmic hums, like a furnace kicking on, but softer, deeper in the throat. Then clicks, small, precise, metallic sounding snaps that came in patterns. 3 quick, 2 slow. 3 quick, 2 slow. Sometimes a faint, wet gurgle, as though something was being adjusted inside of a sealed chamber. She sat on the edge of her bed with the lamp on, hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles ached, telling herself it was just shell shock. War did things to men. They came home differently. Everyone said so. But the sounds did not feel like grief. They felt mechanical. The next morning he was already at the table when she came downstairs. He had helped himself to the last of the oatmeal, the entire jar of honey, 4 eggs she had not yet cracked. He ate without looking up. "Good morning," she tried. He nodded once. She sat across from him, coffee untouched. "You must have been so hungry out there," she said. Another nod. She swallowed. "Do you remember Miss Carter's dog, the one that used to follow you home from school?" He paused, fork halfway to his mouth, and after several seconds, he said yes. She waited. He resumed eating. "His name was Rusty," she said gently. Thomas did not correct her. He did not add the details she was fishing for, that Rusty had actually been a she, and that Thomas cried for a week when she was hit by a car. He simply kept eating. The days passed in a fog of small tests. She asked about the river they used to fish in. He said he remembered it. She asked about the summer he broke his arm climbing the old oak tree. He said yes. She asked about the letter he wrote her the week before deployment, the one where he promised to bring her back a seashell from whatever beach they landed on. He stared at her for a long moment and said, "I tried." Her stomach turned over. That night the sounds were louder. She stood outside his door, palm flat against the wood. A faint blue light leaked from under the frame. Steady, cold, nothing like the lamplight. The humming rose and fell. The clicks came faster, almost impatient. She did not knock. She returned to her room and locked her own door for the first time in her entire life. She began to ration the food without telling him. She hid cans in the basement, locked the pantry. He still ate everything she placed in front of him and then some. Bread she had not offered, fruit she had meant to save, a block of cheese she kept meaning to grate for supper. The grocery bill doubled, and then tripled. She stopped sleeping more than an hour or 2 at a time. One evening she found him standing in the kitchen staring at the refrigerator. The photograph of 18-year-old Thomas was gone. She looked around. It was on the floor, face down. When she picked it up, the glass was cracked straight across his smile. She asked very softly, "Why did you take it down?" He turned slowly. It was in the way. In the way of what? He didn't answer. He simply walked past her and upstairs. That night the sounds changed. The humming became a low, oscillating drone. The clicks almost sounded like Morse, although she knew no Morse code. She laid awake till dawn, tears leaking silently into her pillow, certain that whatever was in her son's room was listening back. She stopped asking questions. She stopped looking him in the eye. She moved through the house like a ghost, cooking and cleaning, pretending this was normal, pretending she was not terrified every time she heard his footsteps on the stairs. Then came the knock. It was late, after 8 p.m. The sky was already black. She opened the door and two men dressed in uniforms, hats under their arms, faces grave. "Ma'am," the older one said, "we're here about your son, Thomas Hargrove." Eleanor felt the floor tilt. "He came home," she whispered. The younger man frowned. "Ma'am." Eleanor said, "He's upstairs, right now." The older officer glanced at his companion, then back at her. He said, "Ma'am, we regret to inform you that Private First Class Thomas Hargrove was killed in an action 17 months ago. His unit was overrun. There were no survivors. We've only been able to recently recover and identify remains through dental records and DNA. We're here to present you with his flag." He held out the folded triangle of stars and stripes. Eleanor stared at it, then at the men, then past them into the dark street. She began to cry. A great, silent, shaking sobs that made no sound at first, then rose to something raw and animal. The officers murmured their condolences. They placed the flag in her hands, and they left. She closed the door. She stood in the hallway holding the flag against her chest. Above her, Thomas's room. The humming started again. Slow, steady, almost soothing now. She looked up at the staircase. Her legs moved before her mind caught up. 1 step. 2. Her hand on the banister trembled so violently she nearly lost her grip. At the landing she paused. The blue light still leaked from under the door, brighter now, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat she could not feel in her own chest. She reached for the knob. Her fingers closed around it. She turned it. The door opened inward with a soft creak. She stepped inside. The room was dark except for the cold blue glow coming from the corner where the bed used to be. Something sat there on the floor now, legs folded unnaturally beneath it, back straight as if waiting. It turned its head slowly and looked at her with Thomas's eyes. The humming stopped. In the sudden silence she heard her own breathing, shallow, ragged. The thing that wore her son's face tilted its head slightly in a motion too fluid, too precise. It opened its mouth. No words came at first. Then very quietly, very calmly, in Thomas's voice, but slower, as though testing the shape of each syllable it spoke. "Mother, I waited for you." Eleanor's knees buckled. She caught herself in the door frame. The blue light brightened. illuminating the thing's face in full. The eyes did not blink. The mouth curved, not into a smile, but something approximating one. The muscles remembering the motion without the feeling behind it. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. It rose, slowly unfolding itself in stages that no human joint should allow. It took one more step toward her, then another. The floorboards did not creak under its weight, and it stopped just out of reach. "I learned your name," it said, voice still Thomas's but layered now, as though two recordings played slightly out of sync. "I learned your routines. I learned how you fold the towels, how you hum when you think no one hears. I learned everything he knew." Eleanor backed up until her shoulders hit the wall, but it tilted its head again. "But I don't understand why you cry." The blue light flared once, bright enough to burn after images into her vision. When it dimmed, the thing was closer. It reached out a hand, Thomas's hand. The same freckles, the same faint scar on the knuckle from the fishing hook years ago. It did not touch her. It simply held the hand there, palm up, as though offering something it could not see. "I can be him again," it said, "if you tell me how." Eleanor's sob broke free, loud and choking. The thing waited, patient, endless. Downstairs, the front door was still unlocked. The flag lay forgotten on the hall table. Up here, in the room that had once belonged to her son, the thing that wore his skin waited for instructions. And Eleanor realized with a clarity that cut deeper than any blade that she had already answered the only question that mattered the moment she let it inside. She had called it by name. She had fed it. She had let it stay. Now it was waiting to learn the rest. The blue light pulsed once more, slow, steady, almost like breathing. And then in the silence that followed, Eleanor understood she would never leave this room. Not because it would stop her, because she no longer knew which one of them was the imposter. Grief can open doors. Just be careful of what answers. Sleep tight, or don't. From dusk till dawn.